Okay, yay, it's all working. Everything is working. Um, I'm here. I'm here. Human life has stabilized and I can be back on the internet. Today's my birthday. Not like my birthday, but the birthday of the channel. I didn't realize that until I logged on and it was like, hooray, today is your birthday. And I was like, oh wow, wonderful surprise. And then I checked on the about section. I was like, yeah, April 10th, which is also National Siblings Day. So shout out to all my siblings. I love you. Y'all amazing. Um, but yeah, it was nice to see that because like I was feeling the pressure, I was feeling the pull to like be here. Um, and it was nice to see that and also not know that beforehand because then I would have had a bunch of anxiety about having to be here and I would have probably not done it. Just a reminder, unite trans youths now. Shouldn't be an argument. Trans people are people, but apparently that is an argument. But anyway, we are reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. If you are not familiar, this is a kind of current dystopia novel written in 1993. Um, by Octavia E. Butler is about a teenage girl who is living in Southern California. There's very drought, like violence, guns, no food, lots of homelessness, and like a lot of people have died, and they've lived on this compound, like gated community area, and now everything's kind of dispersing, and they're all kind of going their own way. So that's where we are, kind of in the book, and it's kind of also divided into years. So now we are in 2027. Um, and yeah, she's also kind of like a channel for her version of God, I guess. She calls it Earth Seed. So yeah, that's where we are. That's where we're starting. Um, we are Earth Seed. We are flesh, self aware, questing, problem solving flesh. We are that aspect of Earth life best able to shape God knowingly. We are Earth life maturing, Earth life preparing to fall away from the parent world. We are Earth life preparing to take root in new ground, Earth life fulfilling its purpose, its promise, its destiny. Chapter 14. In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn. Earthseed, the Books of the Living. Saturday, July 31st, 2027, morning. Last night, last night when I escaped from the neighborhood, it was burning. The houses, the trees, the people burning. Hi, Tiffany. Smoke awoke me, and I shouted down the hall to Corey and the boys. I grabbed my clothes and emergency pack and followed Corey as she herded the boys out. The bell never rang. Our watchers must have been killed before they could reach it. Everything was chaos. People running, screaming, shooting. The gate had been destroyed. Our attackers had driven an ancient truck through it. It must have stolen a truck just to crash it through our gate. I think they must have been pyro addicts. Bald people with painted heads, faces, and hands, red faces, blue faces, green faces, screaming mouths, avid, crazy eyes glittering in the firelight. They shot us and shot us and shot us. I saw Natalie Moss running, screaming, pitching backward, her face half gone. Oh, by the way, also, this is a pretty violent novel. Don't recommend it for children to listen to. I haven't ever read it before, but I have been surprised by the intensity of some of the words. So just putting a content warning out there since we seem to have a lot of gunfire flying around right now. Okay. um, I saw Natalie Moss running, but also like just caveat side effect, like we are in 2023 and apparently children are going like through regular trainings because of active shooters in schools. So like we are living the dystopian nightmare right now. So like whatever, they're your children. Like anyway, never mind. It's not, it's like, it is about that, but it's not about that. It's supposed to be about the books, but like our world is terrifying disaster fire. Anyway, okay, the book. Whew, okay. I saw Natalie Moss running, screaming, and then pitching backward. Her face half gone. Thank you. Her body still impelled forward. She fell flat on her back and did not move again. I fell with her, caught up in her death. I lay there dazed, struggling to move, to get up. Corey and the boys, running ahead of me, never noticed. They ran on. I got up, felt for my pack, found it, and ran. I tried not to see what was happening around me. Hearing the gunfire and the screams didn't stop me. A dead body, Edwin Dunn, didn't stop me. I bent, snatched up his gun, and kept running. Someone screamed near me, then tackled me, pulled me down. I fired the gun in reflective terror and took the terrible impact in my own stomach. A green face hung above mine, mouth open, eyes wide, not yet feeling all his pain. I shot him again, terrified that his pain would immobilize me when he did feel it. It seemed like he took a long time to die. When I could move again, I pushed his body off me. I got up, still holding the gun, and ran for the wrecked gate. Best to be in the darkness outside, best to hide. I ran up Meredith Street, away from Durant Road, away from the fires and the shooting. I had lost track of Corey and the boys. I had thought they would go toward the hills and not toward the center of town. Every direction was dangerous, but there was more danger where there was more people. In the night, a woman and 3 kids might look like a gift basket of food, money, and sex. Nothing toward the hills. North through the dark streets to where the nearby hills and mountains blotted out the stars. And then what? I didn't know. I couldn't think. I had never been outside the walls when it was so dark. My only hope of staying alive was to listen, hear any movement before it got too close to me, see what I could be, by starlight, be as quiet as I could. I walked down the middle of the street, looking and listening and trying to avoid potholes and chunks of broken asphalt. There was little other trash. Anything that would burn, people would use as fuel. Anything that could be reused or sold had been gathered. Corey used to comment on that. Poverty, she said, had made the streets cleaner. Where was she? Where had she taken my brothers? Were they all right? Had they even gotten out of the neighborhood? I stopped. Were my brothers back there? Was Curtis? I hadn't seen him at all, though if anyone were going to survive this insanity, it would be the Talcots. But we had no way of finding each other. Sound. Footsteps. 2 pairs of running footsteps. I stayed where I was, frozen in place. No sudden moves to draw attention to me. Had I already been seen? Could I be seen? A figure of darkness in otherwise empty street? The sound was behind me. I listened and knew that it was off to one side, approaching, passing. 2 people running down a side street, indifferent to the noise they made, indifferent to the woman-shaped shadows. I let out a breath and drew another through my mouth because I could get more air with less sound that way. I couldn't go back to the fires and the pain. If Corey and the boys were there, they were dead or worse, captive. But they had been ahead of me. They must have gotten out. Corey wouldn't let them come back to look for me. There was a bright glow in the air over what had been our neighborhood. If she had gotten the boys away, all she had to do was look back to know that she didn't want to go back. Did she have her Smith& Wesson? I wish I had it and the 2 boxes of ammunition that went with it. All I had was the knife in my pack and Edwin's old .45 automatic. And all the ammunition I had for it was in it, if it wasn't empty. I knew the gun. It held 7 rounds. I'd fired it twice. How many times had Edwin Dunn fired it before someone shot him? I didn't expect to find out until morning. I had a flashlight in my pack, but I didn't intend to use it until I could be certain I wouldn't be making a target of myself. During the day, the sight of the bulge in my pocket would be enough to make people think twice about robbing or raping me. But during the night, the blue gun would be all but visible, even in my hand. If it were empty, I could only use it as a club, and the moment I hit someone with it, I might as well hit myself. If I lost consciousness for any reason during a fight, I would lose all my possessions, if not my life. Tonight, I had to hide. Tomorrow, I would have to try to bluff as much as possible. Most people wouldn't insist on my shooting them just to test whether or not the gun was loaded. For the street poor, unable to afford medical care, even a minor wound might be fatal. I am one of the street poor now. Not as poor as some, but homeless, alone, full of books, and ignorant of reality. Unless I meet someone from the neighborhood, there's no one I can afford to trust, no one to back me up. 3 miles to the hills, I kept to the starlit back streets, listening and looking around. The gun was in my hand. I meant to keep it there. I could hear dogs barking and snarling, fighting somewhere not far away. I was in a cold sweat. I had never been more terrified in my life, yet nothing attacked me. Nothing found me. I didn't go all the way to the hills. Instead, I found a burned-out, unwalled house a few blocks before the end of Meredith Street. Fear of dogs had made me keep an eye open for anything that might provide shelter. The house was a ruin, a plundered ruin. It wasn't safe to walk into with or without a light. It was a roofless collection of upright black bones. But it had been built up off the ground. 5 concrete steps led to what had been the front porch. There should be a way under the house. What if other people were under it? I walked around it, listening, trying to see. Then, instead of daring to crawl under, I settled in what was left of the attached garage. A corner of it was still standing, and there was enough rubble in front of the corner to conceal me if I didn't show a light. Also, if I were surprised, I could get out of the garage faster than I could crawl out from under a house. The concrete floor would not collapse under me as a wooden one might in what was left of the house proper. It was as good as I was going to get, and I was exhausted. I didn't know whether I could sleep, but I had to rest. Morning now. What shall I do? I did sleep a little, but I kept startling awake. Every sound woke me: the wind, rats, insects, then squirrels and birds. I didn't feel rested, but I'm a little less exhausted. So, what shall I do? How is it that we had never established an outside meeting place, somewhere where the family could reunite after disaster? I remember suggesting to Dad that we do that, but he had never done anything about it, and I hadn't pushed the idea as I should have. Poor God shaping, lack of forethought. What now? Now I have to go home. I don't want to. The idea scares me to death. It's taken me a long time to just write the word home. But I have to know about my brothers and about Corey and Curtis. I don't know how I can help if they're hurt or being held by someone. I don't know what might be waiting for me back at the neighborhood. More painted faces? The police? I'm in trouble either way. If the police are there, I'll have to hide my gun before I go in, my gun and my small amount of money. Carrying a gun can win you a lot of unwanted attention from the police if you catch them in the wrong mood. Yet, everyone who has one carries it. The trick, of course, is to not get caught carrying it. On the other hand, if the painted faces are still there, I can't go in at all. How long do these people stay high on pyro and fire? Do they hang around after their fun to steal whatever's left and maybe kill a few more people? No matter, I have to go and see. I have to go home. Excuse me. Drink your water. It's important to hydrate. No one wants to die straight. Okay. Saturday, July 31st, 2027, evening. I have to write. I don't know what else to do. The others are asleep now, but it isn't dark. I'm on watch because I couldn't sleep if I tried. I'm jittery and crazed. I can't cry. I want to get up and just run and run away from everything, but there isn't any way. There isn't any anyway. I have to write. There's nothing familiar to me but the writing. God is change. I hate God. I have to write. There were no unburned houses back in the neighborhood, although some were burned worse than others. I don't know whether police or firefighters ever came. If they had come, they were gone when I got there. The neighborhood was wide open and crawling with scavengers. I stood at the gate staring in as strangers picked among the black bones of our homes. The ruins were still smoking, but men, women, and children were all over them, digging through them, picking fruit from the trees, stripping our dead, quarreling or fighting over new acquisitions, stashing things away in clothing or bundles. Who were these people? I put my hand on the gun in my pocket. It had 4 rounds left in it, and I went in. I was grimy from lying in dirt and ashes all night. I might not be noticed. I saw 3 women from an unwalled part of Darrant Road digging through what was left of the Yanis house. They were laughing and throwing around chunks of wood and plaster. Where were Shannon Yanis and her daughter? Where were her sisters? I walked through the neighborhood, looking past the human maggots, trying to find some of the people I had grown up with. I found dead ones. Edwin Dunn lay where he had when I took his gun, but now he was shirtless and shoeless. His pockets had been turned out. The ground was littered with ash-covered corpses, some burned or half blown apart by automatic weapons fire. Dried or nearly dried blood had pooled in the street. 2 women were prying loose our emergency bell. The bright, clear, early morning sunlight made the whole scene less real somehow, more nightmare-like. I stopped in front of our house and stared at the 5 adults and the children who were picking through the ruins of it. Who were these vultures? Did the fire draw them? Is that what the street poor do, run to fire and hope to find a corpse to strip? There was a dead green face on our front porch. I went up the steps and looked at him, at her. The green face was a woman, tall, lean, bald, but female. What had she died for? What was the point of all this? Leave her alone. A woman who had a pair of Corey's shoes in her hand strode up to me. She died for all of us. Leave her alone. I'll never in my life wanted to kill another human being. Get the hell out of my way, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I don't know how I looked, but the thief backed away. I stepped over the green face and went into the carcass of our home. The other thieves looked at me, but none of them said anything. One pair, I noticed, was a man with a small boy. The man was dressing the boy in a pair of my brother Gregory's jeans. The jeans were much too big, but the man belted them and rolled them up. And where was Gregory, my clownish smartass of a baby brother? Where was he? Where was everyone? The roof of our house had fallen in. Most things had burned: kitchen, living room, dining room, my room. The floor wasn't safe to walk on. I saw one of the scavengers fall through, give a surprised yell, then climb unhurt onto a floor joust. Nothing left my room could be salvaged: ashes, a distorted metal bed frame, the broken metal and ceramic remains of my lamp, bunches of ashes that had been clothing or books. Many books were not burned through. They were useless, but they had been packed so tightly together that the fire had burned in deeply from the edges and the spines. Rough circles of unburned paper remained, surrounded by ash. I didn't find a single whole page. The back two bedrooms had survived better. That was where the scavengers were and where I was headed. I found bundled pairs of my father's socks, folded shorts and t-shirts, and an extra holster that I could use for the 45. All this I found in or under the unpromising, strange-looking remains of Dad's chest of drawers. Most things were burned beyond use, but I stuffed the best of what I found into my pack. The man with the child came over to scavenge beside me, and somehow, perhaps because of the child, because this stranger in his filthy rags was someone's father's too, I didn't mind. The little boy watched the two of us, his small brown face expressionless. He did look a little like Gregory. I dug a dried apricot out of my pack and held it out to him. He couldn't have been more than 6, but he wouldn't touch the food until the man told him to. Good discipline. But at the man's nod, he snatched the apricot, bit off a tiny taste, then stuffed the rest in his mouth whole. So, in company with 5 strangers, I plundered my family's home. The ammunition under the closet in my parents' room and no doubt exploded. The closet was badly charred, so much for the money hid in there. I took dental floss, soap, and a jar of petroleum jelly from my parents' bathroom. Everything else was already gone. I managed to gather one set of outer clothing each for Corey and my brothers. In particular, I found shoes for them. There was a woman scavenging among Marcus's shoes, and she glared at me, but she kept quiet. My brothers had run out of the house in their pajamas. Corey had thrown on a coat. I had been the last to get out of the house because I had risked stopping to grab jeans, a sweatshirt, and shoes, as well as my emergency pack. I could have been killed. If I had thought about what I was doing, if I had to think, no doubt I would have been killed. I reacted the way I had trained myself to react, though my training was far from up to date. More memory than anything else. I hadn't practiced late at night for ages, yet my self administered training had worked. Now, if I could get these clothes to Corey and my brothers, I might be able to make up for my lack of training, especially if I could get the money under the rocks by the lemon tree. I put clothes and shoes into a salvaged pillowcase, looked around for blankets, and couldn't find one. They must have been grabbed early. All the more reason to get the lemon tree money. I went out to the peach tree, and being tall, managed to reach a couple of nearly ripe peaches that other scavengers had missed. Then I looked around as though for something more to take and surprised myself by almost crying at the sight of Corey's big, well-tended back garden trampled into the ground. Peppers, tomatoes, squashes, carrots, cucumbers, lettuce, melons, sunflowers, beans, corns. Much of it wasn't ripe yet, but what hadn't been stolen had been destroyed. I scavenged a few carrots, a couple of handfuls of sunflower seeds from flower heads that laid on the ground, a few bean pods from vines that Corey had planted up the sunflower stalks and corn plants. I took what was left the way I thought a late arriving scavenger would, and I worked my way toward the lemon tree. When I reached it, heavy with little green lemons, I hunted for any with even a hint of paling of yellow. I took it from the tree and from the ground. Corey had planted shade-loving flowers at the base of the tree, and they had thrived there. She and my father had scattered small, rounded boulders among these in ways that seemed no more than decorative. A few of them had been turned over, crushing the flowers near them. In fact, the rock with the money under it had been turned over. But 2 or 3 inches of dirt under the money packet but the 2 or 3 inches of dirt over the money packet, triple wrapped and heat sealed in plastic, was undisturbed. I snatched the packet in no more time than it had been to pick up a couple of lemons a moment before. First, I spotted the hiding place, then I snatched up the money packet along with a handful of dirt. Then, eager to leave, but terrified of drawing attention to myself, I picked up a few more lemons and hunted around for more food. The figs were hard and green instead of purple, and the persimmons were yellow green instead of orange. I found a single ear of corn left on a down stalk and used it to stuff the money pack deeper into my blanket pack. Then I left. With my pack on my back and the pillowcase in my left arm, resting on my hip like a baby. I walked down the driveway to the street. I kept my right hand free for the gun still in my pocket. I had not taken time to put on the holster. There were more people within the walls than there had been when I arrived. I had to walk past most of them to get out. Others were leaving with their loads, and I tried to follow them without quite attaching myself to any particular group. This meant that I moved more slowly than I would have chosen to. I had time to look at the corpses and see what I didn't want to see. Richard Moss, stark naked, lying in a pool of his own blood. His house, closer to the gate than ours, had been burned to the ground. Only the chimneys stuck up, blackened and naked from the rubble. Where were his two surviving wives, Karen and Zara? Or had they survived? Where were all of his many children? Little Robin Balter, naked, filthy, bloody between her legs, cold, bony, barely pubescent. Yet she might have married my brother Marcus some day. She might have been my sister. She had always been such a bright, sharp, great little kid, all serious and knowing. 12 going on 35, Corey used to say. She always smiled when she said it. Russell Dory, Robin's grandfather, only his shoes had been taken. His body had been almost torn apart by automatic weapons fire. An old man and a child. What had the painted faces gotten for all their killing? She died for us, the scavenger woman had said of the green face. Some kind of insane burn the rich movement, Keith had said. We've never been rich, but to the desperate we looked rich. We were surviving and we had our wall. Did our community die so that addicts could make a help the poor political statement? There were other corpses. I didn't get a close look at most of them. They littered the front yards, the street, and the island. There were no sign of our emergency bell now. The men who had wanted it carried it away, perhaps to be sold for its metal. I saw Leah Yanis, Shani's oldest daughter. Like Robin, she had been raped. I saw Michael Talcott, one side of his head smashed in. I didn't look around for Curtis. I was terrified that I might see him lying nearby. I was almost out of control as it was, and I couldn't draw attention to myself. I couldn't be anything more than another scavenger hauling away treasure. Bodies passed under my eyes. Jeremy Balter, one of Robin's brothers, Philip Moss, George Sue, his wife and his oldest son, Juana Montoya, Ruben Quintilla, Lydia Cruz. Lydia was only 8 years old. She had been raped too. I made it back through the gate. I didn't break down. I hadn't seen Corey or my brothers in the carnage. They didn't mean they weren't there, but I hadn't seen them. They might be alive. Curtis might be alive. Where could I look for them? The Talcotts had relatives living in Robledo, but I didn't know where. Somewhere on the other side of River Street. I couldn't look for them, though Curtis might have gone to them. Why hadn't anyone else stayed to salvage what they could? I circled the neighborhood, keeping the wall in sight. Then I made a greater circle. I saw no one, at least no one I knew. I saw other street poor who stared at me. Then, because I didn't know what else to do, I headed back toward my burnout garage on Meredith Street. I couldn't call the police. All the phones I knew of were slag. No strangers would let me use their phones if they had phones. I didn't know anyone whom I could pay to call and trust to make the call. Most people would avoid me or be tempted to keep my money and never call. And anyway, if the police have ignored what's been done to my neighborhood so far, if such a fire and so many corpses can be ignored, why should I go to them? What would they do? Arrest me? Take my cash as their fee? I wouldn't be surprised. Best to stay clear of them. But where was my family? Someone called my name. I turned around, my hand in my pocket, and saw Zara Moss and Harry Balter, Richard Moss's youngest wife and Robin Balter's oldest brother. They were an unlikely pair, but they were definitely together. They managed, without touching each other, to give the appearance of all but clinging together. Both were blood-spattered and ragged. I looked at Harry's battered, swollen face and remembered that Joanne had loved him, or thought she had, and that he wouldn't marry her and go with her to Oliver because he believed that what Dad believed about Oliver. Are you all right? He asked me. I nodded, remembering Robin. Did he know? Russell Dory, Robin, and Jeremy. They beat you up? I asked, feeling stupid and awkward. I didn't want to tell him his grandfather, brother, and sister were dead. I had to fight my way out last night. I was lucky they didn't shoot me. He swayed, looked around. Let's sit on the curb. Both Zara and I looked around, making sure no one else was nearby. We sat with Harry between us. I sat on my pillowcase of clothing. Zara and Harry were fully dressed in spite of their coating of blood and dirt, but they carried nothing. Did they have nothing, or had they left their things somewhere, perhaps with whatever was left with their families? And where's Zara's little girl Bibi? Did she know that Richard Moss was dead? Everyone's dead, Zara whispered as though speaking into my thoughts. Everyone. Those painted bastards killed them all. No, Harry shook his head. We got out. There'll be some others. He sat with his face in his hands, and I wondered whether he was more hurt than I had thought. I wasn't sharing any serious pain with him. Have either of you seen my brothers or Corey? I asked. Dead, she whispered, like my BB. All dead. I jumped up. No, not all of them. No! Did you see them? I saw most of the Montoya family, Harry said. He wasn't talking to me as much as musing out loud. We saw them last night. They said Juana was dead. The rest of them were going to walk to Glendale where their relatives live. But, I began, and I saw Letisa Husu. She had been stabbed 40 or 50 times. But did you see my brothers? I had to ask. They're all dead, I told you, Zara said. They got out, but the paints caught them and dragged them back and killed them. I saw. One of them had me down, and I saw. She was being raped when she saw my family dragged back and killed. Was that what she meant? Was it true? I went back this morning, I said. I didn't see their bodies. I didn't see any of them. Oh, no, no, no. I saw your mother. All of them. I saw. Zara hugged herself. I didn't want to see, but I saw. We all sat without talking. I don't know how long we sat there. Now and then someone walked past us and looked at us, someone dirty, ragged person with bundles. Cleaner people in little bunches rode past us on bikes. A group of 3 rode past on motorcycles, their electric hum and whine strange in the quiet street. When I got up, the other 2 looked at me. For no reason except habit, I picked up my pillowcase. I didn't know what I meant to do with the things in it. It had occurred to me, though, that I should get back to my garage before someone else settled there. I wasn't thinking very well. It was though that garage was home now, and all I wanted in the world was to be there. Harry got up and almost fell down again. He bent and threw up into the gutter. The sight of his throwing up grabbed at me, and I only just managed to look away in time to avoid joining him. He finished, spat, turned to face Zahara and me, and coughed. I feel like hell, he said. They hit him in the head last night, Zara explained. He got away from the guy who was, well, he got me away, but they hurt him. There's a burned out garage where I slept last night, I said. It's a long walk, but you can rest there. We can all rest there. Zara took my pillowcase and carried it. Maybe something in it could do her some good. We walked on the other side of Harry and kept him from stopping or wandering off or staggering too much. Somehow, we got him to the garage. That's the pain of the world we live in. Like, there's no easy way of pivoting from that type of pain. Reading that and knowing that the world is like that because of the corporate greed and the political greed that's not necessarily been talked about so much because the emphasis is on the poor people who are experiencing the brunt of the brutality and the suffering, the lack of support and the lack of resources. But there's such an emphasis on money still. Even in a world without stores necessarily, like the food that they're all getting, they're growing themselves, right? It's not like there's not talk of them like going to the store to buy things, like, but still there's this like huge emphasis on money, finding the money packet, the money burned out in the closet. But oh man, these are like interesting revelations. But like what she truly lost was like her family, was her loved ones, her like stepmom person, her siblings. Like, those are the important things, those are the important people, the sacred things, but at the end, what she has is the money. I'm interested to see where the rest of the story goes because we're kind of at the halfway point. Let's see, 300, 330 pages, so like 145. We're at 166. Okay. So yeah, we're like at the halfway point. 175. Okay, so yeah, we're a little bit under the halfway point. Math is not my strong suit. I'm very gay. Um but yeah, so I started reading this because at the time it was, I mean, it still is significant and poignant. Anyway, at the time it was appropriate. But also, I'm also reading Killing the Planet, which is a book that I read in 2019 that like made me so angry about the state of our world and like America and like how our culture works. And it is interesting, but, like, I didn't really know how to, like, talk about this on the internet, and I can't just sit here and read this to you guys for forever, um, because it's really dense and really heavy, and it's kinda like reading, like, an encyclopedia or a phone book, and, like, who's gonna actually listen to that? But recognizing that, like, this is the future projection, expectation, potential reality, and, like, knowing that, like, this is the actual real past of, like, the real people and the real things that they did on the real dates and the real places, there is a connection here. Um, and I haven't checked into this space in a while. I've been very focused on my human life, as is healthy. I'm telling myself this. Um, So if I'm rereading this, it's been read before. My apologies. Maybe it's extra important. I don't know. But this is Killing the Planet, How a Financial Cartel Doomed Mankind. Again, talking about money and how, I mean, money's the root of all evil. Um, I don't necessarily realize what that means, but like what's important and significant is like love and relationships and creativity and rest and adoration and gratitude and sunshine. Like those are real things. Time, money, those are made up concepts. Anyway, so just to bring awareness into the past, I'm on page 14, The Oil War. We're reading The Rebate Plan Unleashed. There's a picture of this woman here. Yeah, you can see her. And underneath it says Ida Tarbell, the daughter of a Cleveland refinery owner, later recalled how her father attempted to understand the events that produced a sudden and devastating impact on his business. The rebate plan unleashed. Okay, so this is going on because the Rockefellers like got a lot of their money because they invested in a railroad system and oil system, and then like got rebates for shipping their oil on their railroad system or their friend's railroad system, but they were paying them money. So they were like kind of paying themselves twice, but it's also like capitalism. So like what does that really mean? Is it just like a good business idea? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, that's just trying to give a little bit of context of what I remember. By this time, Rockefeller had cemented a deal for rebates with other railroads, including Pennsylvania Central, with the help of Jacob Schiff, a Rothschild lackey who had become a partner in Kuhn, Loeb and Company, one of America's largest banks. John D. now set up the South Improvement Company. This company was used to funnel the rebates to Standard Oil and to pressure the railroad owners to raise the rates for Rockefeller's competitors so that he could receive a kickback from all their shipments. Ida Tardell, a daughter of a Cleveland refinery owner, later recalled how her father attempted to understand the events that produced a sudden and devastating impact on his business. On the morning of February 26, 1872, she wrote, the oil men read in their morning papers that the rise in freight rates, which had been threatening, had come. Moreover, that all members of the South Improvement Company were exempt from the advance. At the news, all oildom rushed to the streets. Nobody waited to find out his neighbor's opinion. On every lip there was but one word, and that was conspiracy. Interesting. Well, maybe I'll keep you baited, keep you hooked. So, yeah, just trying to bring awareness to the past a little bit. But also, I am doing this for me. This is my way of trying to break through the capitalism matrix. I'm a disabled trans person who's autistic, and traditional systems of work have not traditionally worked for me. So I'm pivoting, I'm figuring things out for myself. And also, I'm not here to push any specific views on anyone. I'm just here to be myself. And that means I'm very queer, very gay, very trans, and very mystical and spiritual and hyperfixated on things like that. So one of those things is old, ancient religions and civilizations and people cultures and religious texts. I happen to come from an evangelical background with a strong focus and emphasis on I'm here to exist just like anyone else. Yes. Yes. Magic exists. That's all I'm here to say. We're magical people. Magic is real. And here's an ancient text. That's all. That's all. Nothingness. Okay. This one. The first revelation of James. So the Nag Hammadi Scriptures are other biblical texts or texts written in the same time as um, the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that we're all familiar with, but then they were stuffed into scrolls and stuffed into clay jars and hidden in the Dead Sea desert and found in the 1980s and recently published and made available. So I just like to read these for fun because I want to find people who want to talk about this with me. So I'm putting it out in public. So we are reading the first revelation of James. James speaks with his brother James. Jesus speaks with his brother James about the one who is and the coming suffering. It happened that the Master spoke to me. See now the completion of my deliverance. I have already given you a sign of these things, my brother James. For not without reason I have called you my brother, though you are not physically my brother, I know you well. So when I give you a sign, pay attention and listen. Once nothing existed except the one who is. That one is unnameable and ineffable. I also am unnameable from the one who is, although I have been given many names. We both come from the one who is, but I am before you. Since you have inquired about femaleness, I tell you, femaleness did exist, but femaleness was not first. It prepared divine powers for itself, but it did not yet exist when I came to be. For I am an image of the one who is. I brought forth the image of the one who is, that the children of the one who is might know what is theirs and what is alien to them. Look, I shall reveal to you every aspect of this mystery. They will arrest me the day after tomorrow, but my deliverance will be near. Interesting. Interesting. So this must have been right before the crucifixion, inquiring about femaleness. I wish there was more text about that already, but the majority of femaleness was taken out of the Bible, as we're all aware of. It's not the fact that they weren't there, it's that they weren't even considered to be people during the time of and any time since then. So rarely any mention of them has been included, which is why the ones that still exist, like Rahab, Rebecca, drawing a blank, Esther, they're so Deborah, they're so significant. Their stories are so impactful and essential to the story of Jesus, which is what the Bible is about, is the story of Jesus, that they have to stay in. So it's cool to see more commentary on femaleness here. I've throughout all of it, there's a lot more. There's also a lot of um, gender fluid talk in a lot of these. Oh, I might need to wrap this up. I think my cat is throwing a fit downstairs. Okay, well, I could just sit and talk about this stuff all day. That's why I invented a YouTube channel about it. Last things last, just for funsies, let's see what crystal powers we're getting. I hope y'all are doing well. I am doing really, really well. Life is pretty great. What sort of extra powerful... Oh my gosh, that's so many. Okay, we're just going to go with clear quartz for some purification. Clear quartz is really great. It's an amplifier for all things. It's like a transmuter. It's a purifier. It's really great crystal to have around. A great, as much as you want, can, whatever. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me now or at some point in the future. If you want me to be here regularly and consistently, your assistance would be greatly beneficial in that area, as it's my birthday and you can invite people to hang out with me here at my birthday party. I also am on other places on the internet. Anywhere you want to hang out with me increases engagement. You can give me a little algo boost, like an ego boost, but not for my ego, for the algorithm, just to like more people can hang out together. I've got some bubbles from Easter. I love bubbles. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with me. You're amazing, you're loved, you're valued, you're important, you're powerful, you're created with a divine purpose. And thanks for sharing your light with this world because we need it. Take care and we'll hang out again soon. Okay.